Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a concept that a lot of people see as just a math problem, cost volume profit analysis,
Yep.
or CVP, and we're going to transform it.
Exactly. We're moving it from a static calculation into a really dynamic tool for making strategic decisions. Something that shows you how resilient or maybe how fragile your business really is.
And this deep dive is really for you, the listener, who needs that shortcut to understanding how big companies look at risk, how they run these critical what-if scenarios, without getting bogged down in the numbers.
Our mission is to pull the strategic wisdom out of the accounting.
Right. And to do that, we're grounding this whole discussion in a case study. Jules Corporation. They make baseball gloves.
It's a great example. So let's lay out the base case. The selling price for a glove is $200.
Okay.
The variable costs, say, think raw materials, direct labor, that's $110.
Yeah.
And their monthly fixed costs, rent, salaries, that's $63,000.
So, quick math. For every glove they sell, they've got $90 left over after paying for the glove itself.
That's it. That $90 is the contribution margin, or CM. That's the cash that contributes to covering those big fixed costs and, hopefully making a profit.
And the target profit here is $36,000.
Right. So based on all of that, the company needs to sell 1,100 units. But what's fascinating here, and this is the real point, is that we're moving beyond simple accounting and into forecasting.
Okay.
The real power of CVP is in what we call sensitivity analysis. We have to ask, if the world changes, does that $36,000 profit just crumble?
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's really test the resilience of that goal. We can start with a pretty straightforward shift, a big change to a fixed cost.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
So imagine Jules Corp, I don't know, leases new equipment, or maybe their insurance just skyrockets. In our scenario, the fixed costs jump by $18,000.
So they go from $63,000 up to $81,000.
A huge jump. And the question for our manager is immediate. How many more gloves do we have to sell just to stay in the same place? Just to hit that same $36,000 profit?
Well, we don't have to do complex algebra. We can just think about the structure. The fixed cost burden just went up by $18,000.
Okay.
And since the contribution margin for each glove is still $90, we just need to cover that new cost.
So you just divide the new cost, the $18,000, by the $90 you make on each glove.
And that tells you exactly how many more gloves you need. It comes out to exactly 200 additional units.
200 more. So they now need to sell 1,300 units in total, up from 1,100, just to stay put. And, 200 units sounds manageable, but when you scale it up, that $18,000 hike requires $40,000 in new revenue.
That's the key. You're going from needing $220,000 in revenue to $260,000. That's a big leap just to tread water.
It really puts it in perspective.
And here's the insight that you have to take away from this. We can actually express this risk as a multiplier. For every $1 increase in fixed costs, this business needs to generate $2.22 in additional contribution margin.
Wait, okay, hold on. 222? That feels really specific. How does a manager use a number like that?
It's the immediate way to quantify risk. A proposal lands on their desk, let's say a $10,000 software subscription. They don't have to guess. They instantly know they have to generate $22,200 in extra margin just to justify it.
It transforms a negotiation then.
Absolutely. It's not a vague discussion anymore. It's a precise financial target.
So that $18,000 cost isn't just a cost, it's a commitment that requires this ongoing $40,000 safety net of sales.
Exactly. And that systematic framework, start with the equation, plug in the new numbers, solve it, and then, and this is the most important part, interpret the business implications. That's what stops you from making big mistakes.
All right, so we've established how sensitive the business is to fixed costs. Now let's compare that to the other variables, variable cost and selling price. I have a hunch the sensitivity is even higher there since they directly hit that all-important contribution margin.
You're right to suspect that. This is where you really see why contribution margin is king. It's the one number that wraps up your pricing power, your cost control, everything, really.
Okay.
So let's compare a few scenarios. Scenario one, as we said, the fixed cost hike alone required 200 extra units because our CM was still $90.
Right.
Now, scenario two, let's say variable costs creep up, just $5, from $110 to $115, maybe a small tariff, supplier increase, something like that.
Okay, a $5 change.
But that means our new CM drops to $85. And when you run the numbers to hit that same profit target, the units need to jump to 1,376.
Whoa, wait a minute. So the massive $18,000 fixed cost jump only added 200 units. But a tiny $5 variable cost increase requires another 76 units on top of that. That feels wrong. Why is it so extreme?
Because variable costs erode your margin on every single unit you sell. It's not a one-time lump sum you have to cover. It's a perpetual leak. You lose $5 on unit 1, you lose it on unit 2, you lose it on unit 1,300. It just compounds.
I see. It's embedded in the system.
And that's a huge takeaway for anyone managing a business.
Yeah.
You have to obsess over variable cost control.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so what about the flip side, the positive side? How sensitive is the business to a price increase?
Very, very highly sensitive. So in scenario 3, let's say we increase the selling price just a bit to $210.
Okay, a $10 bump.
Our new CM jumps to $100. And because we're dividing our required margin by a much bigger number, the units needed drop sharply to only 1,170.
Wow.
So if you synthesize this, you see the hierarchy. Variable cost changes have a high sensitivity, but selling price changes have a very high sensitivity. It is the most powerful lever you can pull, for good or for bad.
Okay, so now for the moment that I think makes most managers panic, when everything changes at once.
It's a multivariable shift, yeah.
The source material had a great example of this.
Right.
Fixed costs go up to 81,000. Variable costs go up to 115, and the selling price goes up to 210. My first instinct is just panic.
And that feeling is exactly why this systematic approach is so valuable. You don't panic, you start putting the new pieces into the structure.
Right. No new formula, just new inputs.
Mm.
So first, we find the new contribution margin.
Yep. The new price, $210, minus the new variable cost, $115. That gives us a new CM of $95.
Okay.
We take our required total contribution margin, which is $117,000, divide that by our new $95 CM, and we get 1,232 units.
So it landed somewhere in the middle. The price hike helped offset the cost increases. The lesson here is pretty clear. The CVP structure holds up no matter how chaotic things get, as long as you're methodical.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets, for me, really interesting. We've been talking about physical units, baseball gloves. What about a service business, a law firm, or a huge online retailer selling thousands of different things? They don't have a single unit.
And that's where the unit-based approach it becomes irrelevant. We have to switch to the dollar approach, using the contribution margin ratio. In the real world, this is often the more powerful view.
So what is the CM ratio?
It just expresses the contribution margin as a percentage of the selling price. For Jules Core, it's the $90 CM divided by the $200 price, so 45%.
And the other side of that coin is the variable cost ratio, which would be 55%, 110 divided by 200.
And that relationship is critical. The VC ratio plus the CM ratio must always equal 100%. The way to think about it is this. Every single dollar of sales immediately splits into two parts.
Okay.
55 cents goes straight out the door to pay for making the product. The other 45 cents is what you have left to cover all your fixed costs and hopefully make a profit.
And with that ratio, the formula for break-even sales in dollars is just incredibly elegant. It's just fixed costs divided by the CM ratio.
That's it. So for Jules, it's $63,000 divided by 0.45, which gives us $140,000 in break-even sales revenue.
And for a manager, that number is gold. They don't have to worry about how many gloves or bats they sold this month. They just know they need $140,000 in revenue to not lose money.
It gives them that high-level view of financial resilience, regardless of the product mix.
So now we have the tools. We have the framework. Let's get to the whole point of this. What real-world decisions can a manager make with this?
This is where we apply it. Let's walk through 3 classic business choices, all pulled from the source material.
Perfect.
First one, a high-value investment decision. We talked about that proposal to spend $18,000 on new equipment. CVP told us immediately they'd need to sell 200 more units to justify it.
So the strategic decision isn't based on a hunch anymore. The question is precise. Do we truly believe this new machine will help us sell at least 200 more units? If the answer is no, you reject the investment.
CVP provides the benchmark. Exactly. Okay, application 2, a structural trade-off. This is the classic, should we swap fixed costs for variable costs?
Automation is a perfect example.
Right. So the original scenario gave them $36,000 in profit. Now they're considering a new machine that would raise their fixed costs to $68,000, but lower their variable costs to $100 per glove.
So that's a $5,000 hit on fixed costs, but you gain $10 in variable costs, which pushes the CM up to $100.
And if you run the numbers at that same 1,100 unit volume, the new profit is $42,000.
Wow, a $6,000 improvement.
And they didn't have to sell a single extra unit? The decision is easy. Accept the trade-off. You quantified the risk and found a way to be more profitable.
And the third one, which is always the riskiest, pricing strategy. We saw how sensitive profit is to price.
It really is.
So let's look at that aggressive proposal. A manager wants to lower the price by 10% down to $180 because they're convinced it will boost sales volume by 20%.
This is the kind of move that can sink a company. The manager's relying on a gut feeling that more volume will cover the price cut.
But when we run the numbers, the new contribution margin per unit just plummets from $90 all the way down to $70.
Right. The price is $180, the variable cost is still $110. You're left with $70.
And the resulting profit in that scenario
Sure.
comes in at just $29,400.
A $6,600 drop in profit. That aggressive market-conquering idea actually destroyed value. The volume increase wasn't nearly enough to offset the margin erosion.
The power here isn't just getting the number right. It's having the language to explain why an idea that sounds good like a 20% volume boost is actually a really dangerous move.
It changes the manager's role entirely. You move from just reacting to costs to actively managing the resilience of your whole business. The real value of CVP is in comparing these quantified alternatives.
So what does this all mean for you? We saw in our base case with Jules Corporation that an 18% increase in their fixed costs required an 18% increase in units sold just to maintain the same profit. That relationship, that one-to-one link, is a huge indicator of your risk. But think about this for a moment. What if Jules wasn't selling gloves? What if they were a software company with a really high contribution margin ratio, say 75% instead of 45%? How much less sensitive would their required sales be to that exact same $18,000 cost increase?
Much, much less sensitive.
That difference is the strategic insight that CVP unlocks. Go explore those relationships in your own business or businesses you analyze. Because understanding that sensitivity, well, that's the bedrock of making confident, sound financial decisions.